Okay, so let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, one and all, and thank you for joining us for this exciting and okay. So welcome, one and all, and thank you for joining us for this exciting and insightful webinar on the role of data classification in meeting privacy regulations. So in this webinar, we'll be discussing the latest guidelines released by regulators such as PCI SSC, the Reserve Bank of India, and IRDAI for the regulated entities to ensure the safety and privacy of customer data. So now this has been a topic of conversation the past few months, and we have been getting a lot of feedback from the industry. So we thought, why not put our collective intelligence and share our knowledge and expertise on the subject that will benefit every entity in the BFSI sector in India. So for all those, the CISOs, the DPOs, and heads of compliance out there, you shall find, I'm sure you'll find this session helpful in your compliance and data security journey. So we have an expert panel with us today to give us an overview of these guidelines and walk us through the intersections and answer any of your queries regarding the same. The webinar, we'll end the webinar with a brief presentation showcasing our data classification capabilities, followed by Q&A. So I urge you to type in your questions in the chat window, and we'll take it towards the end of the session. And before I introduce the panel, allow me 1 minute to present an overview about SISA. So SISA, we are a forensics-driven cybersecurity solutions company for the payments industry, and is among the top 5 global PCI forensic investigators. We are actively engaged in card and data breach investigations and incident response activities. So we have a vision to build a digitally secure society through a comprehensive stack of cybersecurity solutions that includes data discovery and classification, managed detection response. And we've been rated very highly by Gartner Peer Insights and also recognized by some of the leading analyst groups, including HFS, which published a recent report. Let me also take this opportunity to announce that SISA Institute, which is our training and certification wing that imparts the renowned CPI-SI, CPI-SI-D, and CPI-SI advanced certification programs, we were recently accredited by ANSI, the American National Standard Institute, which is great news for us. With that, let me introduce our speakers for today's discussion. I have two of my very good colleagues, Smita Menon and Prabhu, who's going to be leading this webinar. Smita Menon is the Senior Director, Compliance and Testing, and she is a PCI and regulations expert. She comes with over 22 years of experience in the infrastructure and application domain. Smita has worked extensively in the governance, risk, and compliance practice within cybersecurity, providing compliance-related services in PCI DSS, ISO 27001, SOC 1, SOC 2, and SOX. Apart from being CISA certified, she holds multiple certifications. Previously, she has held various leadership roles at MISIS, CGI, and Capgemini. Welcome, Smita. Joining her today is Prabhu Narayanan, VP and Head of SISA's Data Security and Governance Business Unit. He comes with over 25 years in IT and 16 years specifically in the cybersecurity domain. So he's a seasoned leader and has worked in organizations like the likes of IBM, Cognizant, and AFLAC, to name a few. He's again CISSP, CISM, and CISA certified with exhaustive experience in both system integrators and product development. Very well versed with the various data security, data governance policies, regulations, and frameworks. I'm sure that everybody will benefit from this session. So let's dive into the discussions. Over to you, Prabhu.
Hey, thanks, Venom. Thanks, one and all, for joining in. Really appreciate you giving us some time and be part of this knowledge thought process that we are looking at. So with much ado, and since it's a very short session, we can just go into. I mean, we are talking about making a cybersecurity as a boardroom agenda because primarily in the good olden days, it always used to be that when security was spoken about, it was concerned with one particular team or maybe the IT team that's out there, right? So effectively, that paradigm is changing, and people are understanding where, or at least the top level management is being made responsible and accountable for the security of their enterprise, which is actually a good sign, because the top down approach always works along with the data owner. So now it's more like security is a responsibility of everyone in the enterprise instead of being a particular team looking into it, right? So that's the reason why it is being spoken about. And if you really look at the latest RBI guidelines, which was primarily RBI has published it primarily more for the PSOs, where they are also talking about from the board of directors to the CISOs to the risk management teams to the IT teams to the data owners who are getting involved into it. And the primary responsibility and accountability comes from the board of directors to the CISOs and to the data owners. So effectively, everybody is made accountable. Everybody is made security aware, which is a good sign, because definitely if you have to percolate from top to the lowermost root levels that you're looking at, then you definitely need to make your teams or every individual being security aware about it, which is actually a good sign. And in tandem to it, the IRDA guidelines are also provided, where IRDA guidelines is primarily for the insurance sector, more exhaustive, covers from again, it also talks about a top-down approach from the board of directors till the data owner level or to the ground level, along with all the other supporting teams and details that are out there. So effectively, it's a good sign. And by July, we looking at or expecting a data protection bill to be passed primarily from our government. It actually resonates into, or it is in drawn in parallel, or providing more like a guidelines, governance frameworks which could be developed to it, is being provided into it. So it's a pretty good welcome sign, and more from covering, apart from the perimeter security, which used to be the good old days with firewalls and all that. They're talking about they are talking primarily also on the data, understanding the data landscape for you and how you can protect it. And in fact, I was actually pretty happy to see like the fine grained type of controls are also being spoken about in the detail from the application level, and how the application related details should be looked into. Because if you really look at it, depending upon the enterprise ROI, people normally adapt in for the course level of security controls, while now I could see a good mandate also happening, like fine-grained controls to be applied, knowing the digital threats that we have, and especially talking about a payment industry or a BFSI segment where it's more prone for ransomware and other threat-related aspects, and data proliferation being more as we move from. I mean, we are moving into the hybrid environment as well, right? From on-premise to cloud and all that related details. So with that's the high-level thought process that I had. And in the slides moving forward, we'll talk more about the related details. Smita, if you do you want to add in any? Do you want to chime in with some of the points?
Sure. So thank you, Prabhu. And firstly, a very warm welcome to all of you joining this call. And I totally echo to your points, Prabhu. And while we go into the nuances of what RBI and IRDI has to offer, considering the point on the making cybersecurity a company board agenda. See, I must admit that the era where cybersecurity was more of an IT team's responsibility is gone. We are looking at a very dynamic threat landscape and a very evolving requirement, be it on the infrastructure or on the regulatory requirements. It's now a business concern that requires attention from the leadership team within the company. Now, cybersecurity has to be aligned, moreover, interwoven with the organization's goals, strategies, objectives, and so on and so forth. So this can help the organization, make informed decisions on the risks, cybersecurity related risks, understand the risk profile, and action around it. So giving a board accountability gives a higher visibility, impact, and importance on cyber and having it adhere to the same, and it makes it more effective. This also elevates the confidence level that our stakeholders would have on the organization. So I would say, though not so long overdue, but a lot of organizations are moving right now in this direction, which is a really good move. So these are my thoughts. Over to you.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that info. So effectively, I mean, if we could just move on to the next slide, where we are just looking at the RBI and the IRDA related guidelines and how it is being mapped into the PCIDSs. If you really look at it, right? I mean, as I was talking to you just a few minutes back, from the coarse grain type of security controls, which used to be like a perimeter control or type of a database security encryptions being applied on the data, and other details. There's an exhaustive list that has been put in for the by the RBI as well as from the IRDA team. If you really look at it, you would be able to see a lot of similar inferences that are going in. But while the RBI had made it more specific to the PSOs, this IRDA is more related to the insurance company. But effectively, the good thing about it is like they are actually making the enterprise responsible and the leadership team responsible for the varied security controls, and the CSEC level of the team is expected to know the type of the security control that's being applied into, because they are the ones who are being made responsible for driving it along with the CISOs or the CSOs of the team, right, of the enterprise that are going to be a part of it. So if you really look at it, as I was talking about, there's an exhaustive guidelines that has been put in where you could see like people moving from network security towards the application level of security, which is like from a course to the fine grain type of security being looked at. And people are also talking about the BCP plans, which is pretty good to look at. And the holistic coverage of trying to protect data in rest or in motion or in use is being spoken about as part of this, right? So effectively from the point of inception till the point of destruction or the disposal, every detail of it is being touched in one way or the other. And effectively to talk about proliferation of data and other details is where like we talk about data security related details. To start the phishing and other related aspects, people talk about employee awareness training, and all that. And pretty stringent guidelines have also been laid with respect to the incident response and the way the SOCs are supposed to be performed and monitored. So effectively, the good aspect about this, or primarily the best aspect that I liked about this guidelines is it starts with a top-down approach. It covers every segment of the security control that's to be there. And the best part is like they are also making the enterprise responsible to monitor their third parties or the third party users that could be part of it. So I was just, when Smita was talking about, I was just quickly browsing through a query that someone has posted where he was asking about what is being considered as data. So effectively, whatever information that you think is sensitive, including the people's knowledge, your device or endpoint, or the real data that's lying out there. Anything that is of value to your company and anything that could be used for uh, uh, taking out, or anything that could be used for putting your company at stake or the enterprise at a stake can be considered as a data, right? So effectively, it's a holistic way of looking at it. Even if there is a breach by your third party vendors, or if there is a data leak that happens from your third party vendors with whom you are working, or a typical example is open source codes that people tend to use as part of their tools and appliances. If you really look at it, any leakages in that hard coding of values, or maybe the people, or maybe the knowledge of your ex-employees, everything can be looked at as a data, and you should figure out a way on how you can retain it properly. And this is this is just more like a governance or a guidelines that has been provided, right? So look at it from a holistic point of view, but this has to be tailor-made. This cannot be a one silver bullet for all the enterprise, right? So it has to be tailor-made for your enterprise, and to make sure understand where your critical data is, so that you can look at the typical type of the control that has to be applied to it. Plus, you need to understand which of these rules are really mandatory for your enterprise, and which of the rules would be more of like a good to have type of a feature, right? So effectively, it varies from enterprise to enterprise, but what RBI and IRDA has tried is that they have covered it in a holistic way of looking at it, right? And I'll just take in views of Smita, because she has been handling the assessments on the data and on the cardholder data, which is primarily from the PCI related aspects. So, Smita, if you want to just chime in on certain parameters which you think are very critical towards the PCI sides and all that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Prabhu. So the information on what the RBI master guidelines or the IRDA guidelines is given is very robust, very humongous. What I just want to touch up is on a very high level on these, and how we look at it from the payment security standpoint and interjection among all these three. Now we know, a couple of years back in 2021, a similar directive was released by RBI for the banking and non-banking financial companies, while the current master guidelines is focusing effectively on the payment security operators who effectively work on identifying, monitoring, controlling, and managing cyber and technology related risks, and how they are the PSOs working with unregulated entities who are also part of this digital payment ecosystem, and how can you get adherence as a whole into this master directive. Now, while we look at the master guidelines, there is a whole range of controls, right from your governance, where you're focusing on cyber risk and resilience. You also have a set of baseline information security controls. That's a wide gamut of controls, from inventory, third party, identity and access management, network security, incident response. What I just want to, bring out over here is focusing on, data security as such. Like when we are looking at from a digital payment standpoint, how can we bring in multi-factor authentication in place wherever we have these payments? How can we look at masking or redacting confidential information, again bringing in data security in any kind of payment transactions that happen, and last not the least, ensuring the awareness, anti-phishing campaigns, bringing in an overall security awareness in the within the domain. Now, additionally, the PSOs, the guidelines also states that the PSOs or their entities that store, process, and transmit data has to be PCI DSS compliant and certified. If they are having any terminals installed at merchants where card data is captured, should be P2PE or PIN transaction security standard compliant. Basically, this is an ask to bring in more rigor to ensure that your card information, which we are calling as sensitive or confidential, is stored in encrypted format, safeguarded, whether it's at the PSO or it's they are supporting entities at their servers or at their vendor locations or at their applications. All these are encrypted and stored safely. Now, saying about RBI, if I look at IRDI, again, the focus here is again on data security, or to bringing in the confidentiality of data from the payment industry. Now, if I have to say, there is a call out in the IRDA guideline that says, card information or related financial information is considered as a PII or a sensitive personal information, and any breach associated with it will result in a security incident, and hence classifying it as highly confidential. So any kind of confidential data would need special permissions and usage only to the extent that is needed. So again, what I want to reiterate over here is it's all about how do you classify and how do you secure the data from the financial standpoint, whether it is an ask from an RBI or from IRDAI. So these are my thoughts around it, Prabhu.
Thanks for that. Thanks, wonderful about that. So effectively, yeah. So okay, to just to re-articulate the other query. I was just speaking about like a live query that came in. So if you really look at it, the data, right? What is being considered as the data? So effectively, to even understand what is being considered as part of the data, either you should have proper policies, guidelines that has to be defined through from your ISMS team, which is what is also being mandated by your IRDA and RBI as part of the guidelines, where they are asking the CSEC level to define and percolate that related details down, right? So effectively, it can be from a human resource, depending upon the type of the domain and environment you work in, to the real digital data that lies out there for you, right? So effectively, this brings into the paradigm where you, as a data owner or as an enterprise, you first need to know where your data resides as such, or you need to know the landscape of your data first, right? So effectively, if you really look at it, that's what we call about something like a data discovery, right? And it actually acts in two ways for you. One, to understand the landscape of or the venues where your data is actually residing at this point of time. Plus, it also gives you to understand how the proliferation of the data has happened, like whether uh, a year back or 6 months back, you were thinking that you were having petabytes of data, and now it has gone into zillion bytes of data. You never know, right? And especially when you're going into cloud. So that effectively will also help you to understand the usage of the cloud and your operational capabilities as well, right? So effectively, uh, so the discovery of that data, or more than the data, I would use a term like the entity that you are actually looking at to be made as part of the data, right? So that entity has to be discovered, or the entity spread has to be understood from your side to know what is that you need to look at effectively. Once the data is identified, or once the entity has been identified from your side, then you need to actually classify it, or you make the judgment to figure out like whether the data has to be classified as a confidential and all that. And again, there are school of thoughts of like a military based gradation of classification, or the normal non-military type of classification should be used. That again depends from enterprise to enterprise, and the classification of the data again varies from enterprise to enterprise. For some companies where a name could be treated as a sensitive, I'm just picking an example, say like a healthcare industry where a name could be considered as a sensitive element. Maybe for insurance company, the name may not be considered sensitive. The reason being, I might have different clients with the same name, right? So effectively, in a healthcare industry where the name and the medical ID becomes a part of a unique ID for them, right? While in insurance company, it is like the insurance number that you get, and your name can be public domain. So effectively, this as I said, like this is a high level guideline again, where it talks about you need to understand where your data resides. You need to classify your data, which is being mandated, because the assets have to be discovered and the assets have to be maintained as part of the inventory is a mandated rule that has been put in with the RBI and IRDA, and it would also be part of the your data protection rule that are going to come in. So which effectively means your data discovery and the data classification becomes of prime importance and of focus for all the members who's actually looking into. And once you know where the data resides, once you know what is the type of the data that resides, because primarily in the industry, if you really look at it, out of 100% of the data, only 20 to 25% or max 30% of the data is actually being considered really sensitive or confidential, which if being compromised can lead to the brand. Can lead to the bad naming of your branding of the enterprise, or maybe ransomwares or threats and whatnot, right? What we could think of, right? So effectively, once you do that, depending upon the landscape and depending upon the classification of the data and the amount of the sensitive data that you have, you should be looking at the security controls that have to be applied. So effectively, what I mean is, even though as a guideline, we're talking about coarse grain protection to the fine grain protection that's being spoken about by RBI and IRDA, but effectively, depending upon your return of investment and depending upon the set of mandatory rules that has been put forth, you need to identify as part of the leaders in your enterprise to see what type of a strategy would work out for you, and you have to pick in those aspects of like around 18 or 20 rules of instance being looked at. You need to come up with a certain rule for certain type of a companies where working from office is being mandated. A remote type of a login may not be even necessary, right? So you can avoid the cost of the VPNs, VDIs, and all that when you give the desktops for the people. So effectively, where you have a hybrid type of environment, which most of the companies now are working on, so you will be looking at implementing the VDI type of controls, then your VPN related enablements and all that stuff. So effectively, as I said, like it varies from company to company, and your strategy also varies depending on that. So effectively, as I said, data doesn't mean only the digital data. The data can be the knowledge repositories that you have. The data can be what your archived data could be, or archived information of certain details that could be there, right? So effectively look at it from that perspective and take in your strategy that suits your enterprise, as well as that is going to give you a better ROI, right? So Smita, any points that you want to chime in here, or
No, I totally echo again, Prabhu, what you're saying, but I think we have to just keep a tab on our time, and we
sorry.
can move ahead. Right.
Sure.
Back to you.
Thanks. Yeah. So I mean, basically, as Venu was also talking about, like SISA is primarily a forensic-driven company. What that means to you is basically based on our experience and the forensic experience that we have, and based on the details or the solutions that we have discovered, or the root cause of the problems that we have discovered based on our forensic information, we actually route it back into the product for us, right? So effectively, based on that is where we created a specific appliance or a tool called a SISA Radar, which is nothing but a total data discovery and a classification tool, which works in tandem. It works as a complementary tool, not as DLP or SIEM, but it works in complementary to feed the information. Once the data is discovered and once the data is being classified, it can feed in the data to your DLPs and to the SIEMs to refine your policies or make your security controls more better, so that you avoid a lot of false positives and other related details, right? So effectively, the policy that's being implemented from your end actually is meant for that particular type of security control that you're looking at, right? So that is what is being looked at. And effectively, I'll just quickly give a brief view about data discovery tool. It basically supports from regex to the other patterns, and primarily the USP of this is more from, we could discover the data from the image files, PDFs, audio files, and all, because there are few entities which need the audio file recording to be given as a proof, and there are conversations about sensitive data and that as well, right? So effectively, we do that. We support more than 17 plus structured, non-structured, SQL, non-SQL related databases. We operate in mode of agent and agentless. We come up with on-prem as well as a SaaS model to the appliance, right? And once the data is discovered, as I was talking to you, you need to classify depending upon your enterprise to figure out what it means to you, which is sensitive and which is non-sensitive. So we have got 4 different classification, which we come up with: confidential, restricted, public domain, and private. So effectively, we look in for those 4 type of different classifications. And we do have automatic classification enablement also. And primarily, we support O365 related MS Office, Outlook, and O365 related classification, apart from classifying the files. We do have, in certain instances where people want to override the automatic classification, we do give them the manual option also, where you could go and change the classification depending upon your MS policies and do that. And once the data is discovered and classified, there is a mandate rule that the data in whichever tools or appliances being used, or data in traced or in use or in transit, has to be protected. We work on a client-server model, so effectively that means that via certificate we have to prevent the data that's being exchanged between my clients to my server, right? So effectively, we use a certificate-based, PKI-based type of enablement done there, so that the data is secure. As well as we do have dynamic masking, which is one of the trends that's actually going in, where you would have seen a typical credit card users where the first 12 digits are being masked for you and the last 4 digits is being showcased to you, while the content of the data is preserved in your environment, right? So that type of dynamic masking is also there. Certain users want a truncation option where our override option, they wanted to delete it and write with some other details. So effectively we do that, and we do it from the single dashboard console. Happy to give a demo if anyone is interested to look into it. And via AES 256, we do have this protection. But the beauty about this is we have integration capability. As I said, like we work in tandem or as a complementary to SIEMs and DLPs. So effectively, we feed in that data, and we have the integration capabilities to all the standard SIEMs and your DLP tools like Symantec, McAfee's, ForcePoint, and Splunk, and your ArcSites and all that, right? So if you could just kindly move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, this is the key differentiator. As I said, like our tool, as I said, is more of a capable one to discover data that's out there in the audio files, OCR files, and a few other PDF. So we support close to around 600 plus formats. And primarily, we are on the verge of bringing in the local language, Hindi, into the play, while we are working on the other related Make in India type of languages, right? So it's a Make in India product, so definitely supports the native languages. But currently, we started with Hindi, on the verge of looking at getting it done. What we mean by that is basically have the screens in Hindi, as well as we would be able to discover the data that are being stored as part of Hindi text and all that, which means you could have a file which is totally in our local language, national language of Hindi, and then you could have sensitive data which we would be able to identify and go through. Arabian language we have done because to cater for the Middle East regions. And they wanted a mandate of it. Mongolian language also we have completed for one of the APAC regions that needed it. And we also support, we are on the progress of working towards Mandarin language, which is slightly complex, so it's taking more time from our side. And the others are to see. This is what our customers talk about it, primarily this is more of Gartner client feedback on our product, right? So effectively, 72 clients have given in the recommendation. We do have close to around 400 plus clients, but 72 took the pain of going into Gartner and giving it out for us, right? And we are rated like 4.9 out of the 5 scale that's being looked into. And Smita, if you want to talk about any live experience of your clients or any details that they have given.
Sure, Prabhu. No, it's all positive, I must say, Prabhu. So we have a couple of, we have, a lot of customers who have, who've been very happy using the Radar tool, because we use this in agreement with our customers for scanning and discovering sensitive information when we are doing this PCI DSS assessments, right? We need to look at the card holder, card data information, where it is stored and all that. So this tool has given a lot of it's not just very user friendly. It is. Apart from being user friendly and easy to deploy, it's a complete package, and you have everything. All the information is available and helps you to do the assessment more effectively. And hence, we have a lot of our esteemed customers talking very highly about this tool and being happy at how this has contributed to the overall assessment as a whole. So it's a good way forward. Yeah. Sure. So,
Prabhu, you're on mute.
Prabhu, yeah.
Hey, sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. I was so busy looking at the queries. I thought like whoever I can answer fast, I will do that. So I'm okay. So I got 9 questions. If the people can stay in the call for like few more minutes, I'll try to cover as much as possible. Where I do not have answer, I'll get back to you quickly on that. So effectively, in data security regulations, speak about encryption, rest in motion. There is a new control that say that data used to be encrypted. Can you shed more? So this is more like, I mean, somebody is asking about how data in use is being looked into. So this is primarily applying protection on the RAM and on the fly when the data is being used. It is being secured using the certain algorithms, and the section or the space where these operations or the transactions are happening for applying this encryption and all gets secured or gets protected from the protected by their own IPs that the companies are defining. There are few companies that actually do that, like Photonics and others, where they claim that they do it, and in fact, Thales also claims of late to do that. So effectively, maybe if you have a session with them, they'll be able to tell you about the primary usage, how they are doing that. The SISA radar capable of discovery resides in endpoints. Yes, we do. The endpoints we implement our clients. There's a question from person on endpoints, NAS, and others. Yes, we do that. Both 365 NAS and endpoints we do support. Endpoints is via the client. NAS primarily storage we can do with agent or agentless. So effectively, we could look at O365 as I showed you. Yes, we do that. Wanted to see a demo? Please reach out when free. Yes, we could definitely do that. Virinchi, my friend, will take care of that. These are be integrated with available DLP and DAM. DAM solutions, DLP, as I said, like we work with all ForcePoint, McAfee, and Symantec related DLPs primarily. The blanket statement here is any software that has got an API integration capability to that, we would be able to integrate to that and feed in the data to you. So effectively, we are working for a client where they have a Symantec DLP and Imperva, a DAM, and we are working towards integrating that. Platform supported. I mean, there's a at the end of this appendix of the slides, we do have all the platforms and related details that was that are being supported from our end. There was one question which I forgot to answer. Like, do we support Mac? Yes, we are working on that. We do primarily Windows and RHEL is what was being looked at as for the part of the discovery, which we do support. Mac is integration in process, but we should be able to achieve that. Footprint overhead. Okay, so if you're worried about it, it's a client server technology. Server is going to be more of a management server where we need to talk while the client footprint is pretty less. I believe the overhead that you're talking about is more from the performance. Overhead is for an agent based, what we have seen on the endpoints is like max of 3 to 5% performance impact is what it gives. While for the agentless, what we have seen is anywhere from 5 to 7% is what we are looking at from the server side of it. Management on-prem cloud, both options are supported. Hybrid model is available from our side. Can you share a case study? Yes, we could do that. That's not a problem at all. My friend Virinchi can help you out with it. Who are the competitors? There are a lot of competitors for us in this domain. Whoever is supporting data discovery and classification would be a competitor. So it can be from Big ID, Veronis, MIP. I mean, nowadays they don't call it MIP, right? So Microsoft calls it in a different way. So effectively, the competitors, like any person who is able to do, irrespective of whether he's a small or a big player, who can do classification and who can do discovery, is our competitor in the market. As an existing PSA certificate, is there any specific solution we should be aware of to be ready for PCI again? So Smita, you want to answer that? I'm not expert on that, so.
No, so I think I will take that separately.
Perfect.
All the points, because it's going to be a little elaborate.
So
I'll take it on
Arukiraj, you will get a reply from us for sure. We will answer back to you over the mail on that.
Right.
Data security versus data privacy. Is there a difference between? Yeah, so privacy talks more about the rules and the framework, while the security is about the real protection of the data. So that's the primary difference that we need to understand. Privacy defines, or at a holistic view, we can look at it like a superset, which says like what is that what is that you need to do, like protecting. It's more like a governance framework that you could look at. Data privacy. Security is basically the real implementation on the ground. So the other PSI DSS difference between 3.2.1 to 4.0, we will reply back to you on that. Definitely the PPTs will be shared. EDR solutions, no, I mean, I'm sorry, yes, we do. There's a different unit which Mr. Venu was talking about, where we do MDR and EDR related needs. So effectively, we could look at that. That's a different section to talk about. I hope I answered all the questions, right? Yeah. So,
and we will come back on the remaining ones.
Yeah, whatever has been left out, we definitely will be replying back to you. Be assured that you will get the response from our side.
Yes.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining in, and I really appreciate you giving us some time, and hope this session was very useful for you all.
Thank you all for joining the call, and have a nice day. Thank you very
Prabhu.
much.